CoQ10 levels go down, we could get immune system dysfunction, and basically we could get also inflammation. And one of the major problems with statin drugs is that CoQ10 levels will diminish. So in anybody taking a statin drug, they must, and I have to really emphasize this, they must take coenzyme Q10 as a supplement. You won't be able to get it back in your diet. I mean, even if you took in 5 pounds of wild salmon a day, you're not going to get in the near enough the amount of CoQ10 to protect your immune system and your vascular system. So anybody on a statin drug, I recommend at least 100 to 200 milligrams, preferably 200 milligrams of a high-quality ubiquinone, CoQ10, or any ubiquinol. It doesn't make a difference to me. I like ubiquinol. I've been using a very, very bioavailable, water-soluble ubiquinone for years.
Ubiquinone is CoQ10 for those.
Yeah, they're both CoQ10s for the record. Yeah. And they're both very good. And I just feel that if you protect a person while they're on a statin, by keeping their CoQ10 levels up, then you can prevent, heart failure in these patients. Remember, statins are a cause of diastolic dysfunction, and diastolic dysfunction is a problem that precedes heart failure or systolic dysfunction by 10 or 20 years. And it's definitely been shown with patients taking statin drugs that they are prone to diastolic dysfunction, and patients on statin drugs can get it. So in addition to muscle cramps and neuropathy and liver problems and mind-body problems, cognition problems, statins have a lot of baggage. Like I said, they'll do a lot of good for the male with coronary disease, but in any person taking a statin, you must give CoQ10 to prevent a lot of these musculoskeletal side effects, and fatigue for that matter. A lot of these patients won't have the fatigue if they're taking a statin drug.
So let's just discuss one of the points you made with respect to it being in the diet. Well, actually, let's discuss that later. Do you feel that that generally people who are put on statin drugs with outside of the risk factors that you mentioned, which is probably the majority of people, maybe give an estimate as to how many people you believe are put on them inappropriately, but for whatever this percentage is, do you think that the statin drug is causing more harm than good and actually increasing their risk for heart disease and other complications rather than decreasing?
Yeah, I mean, what you said was very true. Statins are really good drugs for, like I said, the middle-aged male, with coronary disease or coronary calcification, particularly those with low HDL. The problem with statins is they're actually prescribed for so many other people, and the side effects of statins are grossly underreported. And I just feel that the overutilization in statins will cause, their own plethora of side effects. Remember the Baycol disaster about, that occurred in 2001, where Baycol was a very, very potent statin that killed a lot of people because they had such lysis of their muscles where they were putting hemoglobin into their kidneys and causing kidney failure. We call it rhabdomyolysis, where the muscles were just so inflamed they were bursting. And a lot of people died, and the FDA recalled it. Well, a lot of other statins do this as well. However, patients don't report it to their doctors. They have difficulty getting out of a chair. They feel weakness. They have muscle cramps following doubles tennis. They walk the dog, and they get tired legs, and they don't tell their doctors about this. But these are statin side effects. Even in my last workshop in the Berkshires, I had a patient there, a gentleman there who was getting nocturnal muscle cramps at night and getting skin rashes, and he was on Crestor, and to me that's just a tip-off that he's having side effects from the statins, but yet he didn't think to tell his doctor, because he thought he was just getting older, and we have to be really mindful that statins, again, they can do good for a small part of the population, but unfortunately, they're oversubscribed because a lot of doctors are treating numbers instead of treating patients. And we got to realize that whenever we prescribe a statin, we have to individualize it for every patient that we write the script for. Because if we're using statins to try high cholesterol, I just believe it's not smart medicine at all.
So you also mentioned, as I alluded to earlier, the issue of that the fact that CoQ10 is available in the diet, although in relatively small quantities, but it is really impractical to use it as a source of CoQ10, because ultimately we're designed to produce our own, and that's why taking the statins is such a problem, because it shuts down the metabolic pathway that's designed to produce CoQ10. So you shut off the supply. You're not going to get enough from your diet, so you need to supplement. So, but I'm wondering, for the general population, for the 3 out of 4 Americans over 45 who are not taking statin drugs, if you think there's any indication or value to taking this on a regular basis for other reasons, because in my understanding is as we tend to grow older, that our body's ability to produce this is somewhat diminished, and it provides the coenzyme Q10 is such an important nutrient in our body as an antioxidant and other functions that there may be benefit to considering using it as a supplement to improve our health and longevity.
You know, Joe, I've been using CoQ10 for 30 years now, and I mean, for me, it is the most important antioxidant membrane stabilizer around. I mean,
okay, well, that's a powerful statement. So why don't you expand on that? That's a really powerful statement.
I mean, to me, I mean, it's king, and I'll tell you why. Today, everybody is suffering from mitochondrial toxicity. And what does that mean? Let's look at the Gulf War syndrome, for example. And Beatrice Golub just did a study on this out of the University of San Diego, and she just brought to light. You know,
she is just a great, wonderful lady. I've had a chance to interview her previously, and we'll
good,
put a link to that. She's just an outstanding physician.
Yeah, I'm going to interview her for my newsletter, but you know, she believes, like I do, that statin drugs are mitochondrial toxins. And again, you know, we have to. You know, when we use a statin drug, we have to, again, use it for the right person. However, a lot of wrong people or not the right people are placed on statins. But let's look at the Gulf War syndrome, because it's very important. We have maybe 100,000 veterans who have Gulf War syndrome. And, well, why do they get it? And first of all, what is it? Well, it's a situation where a lot of these veterans had musculoskeletal pain, joint pain. They had cognition problems, depression, hostility a little bit. They had insomnia. They had respiratory difficulties, shortness of breath, and they had GI problems. And, well, what caused it? Well, there's a lot of theories. There's theories about, you know, burning oil pits and uranium and maybe vaccines from anthrax and emotional stress and radar and EMF, toxic EMF in those days in the service was, you know, high-powered communications. You know, all these things culminated in a perfect storm where everything I mentioned is really a mitochondrial toxin, you know, even nerve gas elements, and they were given, again, you know, the vaccinations, being in the heat. There were so many factors there that caused mitochondrial toxicity. So what Dr. Golub did is she used a mitochondrial support. I've always called CoQ10 like a mitochondrial fertilizer, because remember, mitochondrial DNA, unlike nuclear DNA, has no defense mechanisms built in. So if we give a lot of mitochondrial toxins, or we're around, let's say, insecticides, pesticides, mercury, or other heavy metals, radiation, EMF, et cetera, then our mitochondria become very vulnerable, and as Bruce Ames would say, they would drop out, and then they would die, and then we would get tissue impairment and eventually pathology.
Well, you know, you and I both went to med school, and many of the listeners have biological training that then they know what mitochondria are. But for those of the listeners who don't, maybe you can expand on, you know, what the mitochondria are and their purpose and function, because that really helps deepen their appreciation for what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, the mitochondria are the little organelles inside the cytoplasm of the cell, if our listeners remember from high school biology, there's a nucleus in the cell, and there's like these little organelles called mitochondria, and inside the mitochondria is where our energy is formed. We call it adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. And this is where the energy in our body is formed, and this gives you and I the energy to talk right now. Now, in World War II, the German war criminals knew that a very, very quick death it was to take cyanide, because cyanide would poison the metabolic cycles in our body. We call it the Krebs cycle, and we only have enough ATP for 10 seconds. So if you knock out, your metabolic pathway with, let's say, cyanide, you only have 10 seconds of ATP left, and then you just seize and you die. So clearly, energy is a major problem for a lot of people in our society. A lot of people lose the bounce in their step. They don't have the energy that they would like. They just feel tired all the time. And even after a round of golf, I would have my patients tell me that, oh, Dr. Sinatra, I just don't have it anymore. But what's happened in our society in the last 20, 30, 40 years is that the environment is so toxic. It's just like these Gulf War veterans, and what I was getting to is that we all have Gulf War syndrome. That's why we all have to take CoQ10, because what Dr. Golam showed is that in every single veteran, with headache or insomnia or GI problems or shortness of breath, whatever their symptom was, if she put that veteran on high-dose CoQ10 or lower-dose CoQ10 versus placebo, they improved in every symptom. And the average of that happening by chance is like 1 in a million. So what she showed was that if you give CoQ10 to a Gulf War veteran, they thrive, they improve. Now, there's very little difference between a Gulf War veteran and even people in our society today, because we're all under emotional stress. We're all breathing in radiation. We're all being exposed to electromagnetic forces, a toxic EMF. We're eating trans fats. We're exposed to mercury. We're exposed to insecticides and pesticides. I mean, on a lesser degree as compared to a Gulf War veteran, but basically we all need to take CoQ10. And what Beatrice Golub also showed us is that the same symptoms that these Gulf War veterans had are very similar symptoms that people with statin intolerance have. So, on my website, heartmdinstitute.com, I did a whole thing on one of the side effects of statins. The whole profile is similar to the Gulf War syndrome. So when people taking statin therapy, I said it's like being at war with yourself, where your own immune system turns on you. So I just feel that in this day and age, in the year 2011, and when we go into the uncertainty of 2012, I'm going to come out with a strong statement. I believe everybody should take CoQ10. I mean, I just feel that it's such a powerful and unique and extraordinary nutraceutical. You need it to turn over your mitochondrial enzymes. We just need it for mitochondrial support. And by alone, CoQ10 is great, but when we give CoQ10 in combination with, the carnitines and magnesium and ribose, then you get the perfect, combination for mitochondrial support. And that's why people on a metabolic cardiology approach, they absolutely thrive. So I just feel it's a great combination for people. But for starters, let's start with CoQ10 because, that's the leader of the pack in general.